Damn. Okay, so I got another question. Malachi says, how much do you guys think the top teams, Mercedes, Aston, Ferrari, will close the gap towards Red Bull by 2024 because of the wind tunnel penalty? And I know we spoke to this before, that you said people are not going to see that if it was to take effect this season more so than next season. So what do you think about that?
I mean, there's a few factors here. First of all, we have to remember that on, I believe, July 1st, the aerodynamic testing restrictions are going to be updated. So, for example, Mercedes was third in the Constructors' Championship last year. Aston Martin was seventh. That's kind of what's been giving Aston Martin a huge ability to do a lot of safety testing, and it's kind of fueling their rise up the grid. Those are going to be updated in a couple of weeks' time, or a month's time, I guess. And essentially, we don't really know yet who's going to be second and who's going to be third in the Constructors' Championship, because Aston Martin and Mercedes are very close. In fact, it may end up being Aston Martin that's third in the Constructors' Championship when that resets. So that's definitely going to slightly adjust, how each of those teams is able to sort of make progress with Red Bull. But I think as far as catching Red Bull, that really isn't the target for this season. The target is to prevent them from winning every single race. That is operationally where the teams find themselves at this particular point. It is odd that normally when you have a regulation change, it's the very first year that has the most dominance from one team, and then everyone sort of converges over time. Red Bull seems to have taken a further step ahead than they were even last year, which suggests that the rest of the field has a lot of work to do. But as far as being able to actually make progress, the end of the season is probably going to be a little bit deceptive, because I predict that other teams, Ferrari or Aston Martin or Mercedes, will win a race on merit before the end of the season. And the reasons for that is, of course, extra testing time, more ability to evaluate their own designs and bring performance to the cars. And Red Bull is going to suffer from the cost cap infringement from the previous season. And by the way, we haven't even heard if there's any cost cap infringement from 2022. We don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
I mean, that could change the landscape
everything
dramatically.
Right.
But the most important thing is that because Red Bull has produced such an excellent car, and because they've created so much performance deficit to their rivals, they can stop working on this car pretty early and still guarantee that they're going to be able to win the championship. And so if they strategically choose to prevent themselves from spending every possible dollar or pound on the current car, and they shift to the 2024 car early, that leaves them slightly vulnerable in the back end of the season. But at the same time, they will start the next season extremely strong. And even when we saw, the parade of car crashes in Monaco, where we saw so many floors for the first time, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, and we were comparing, and Williams, this past weekend, I think Mercedes probably got an unfair amount of flack looking at their floor. Everyone was complaining how simple it is, and then everyone saw the Williams floor, and then it was a completely different story. But what I'll say about that is, even all the things that we look at for a modern underfloor that's a high level development, forward facing steps, backward facing steps, three-dimensional geometries, the complex shapes that Red Bull has, all the things that we were starting to see other teams do with their floors, Red Bull did first anyway. They were already setting the trend for that direction, last year. And more importantly, we believe that Red Bull is going to bring an entirely new floor to either Canada or Silverstone or one of the next few races. So, once you derive a competitive advantage early in the year or early in a regulation change, if you're smart about it and you're not standing still, there's a way to preserve that advantage the entire time, regardless of what other people do. Now, granted, the cost cap will help everyone else and it will make things a bit easier, but fundamentally Red Bull is in a very strong position right now.